It is Wednesday, June 17, 2026. The Federal Reserve announced its decision today. Trump confirmed the Iran deal framework is complete. Lionel Messi just made history. Here are the day's top stories. 1. The Federal Reserve announced its decision at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Fed Chair Kevin Warsh held his first post-meeting press conference at 2:30 p.m. The Fed's decision: hold the federal funds rate steady at 3.50% to 3.75%. This was the fourth consecutive meeting with no rate change. Markets had priced a 97% probability of this hold. What matters more than the rate decision is what Warsh signaled about the path ahead. The Fed removed easing language from its statement, moving toward a neutral stance. Some committee members now project rate hikes in 2026, a significant shift from Powell's earlier stance favoring cuts. Warsh told reporters he expects inflation to remain sticky at elevated levels through the year. He also said the committee remains divided on whether cuts or hikes are more likely. Why it matters. The Fed's pivot away from easing signals policymakers believe inflation cannot be cut further without economic pain. This makes rate cuts unlikely through year-end, which means higher borrowing costs for mortgages, auto loans, and credit remain the baseline. 2. Trump confirmed the U.S.-Iran deal framework is complete. Trump announced the development while attending the G7 summit in Canada. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who mediated the negotiations, said a formal signing ceremony will take place Friday in Switzerland. Trump said the deal's core terms are: Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, and the Strait of Hormuz will fully reopen. Trump also announced he has authorized removal of the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports. The agreement ends more than 100 days of war that cost over $30 billion in military spending. The Strait of Hormuz, blocked since February 28, carries 20% of the world's daily oil supply. However, significant questions remain unresolved. The framework does not fully address Iran's uranium enrichment capacity, the timeline for sanctions relief, or the scope of nuclear inspections. These details are expected to be finalized after Friday's signing. Why it matters: a completed deal would stabilize global energy markets and reduce Middle East tensions that have dominated geopolitics for 4 months. Oil prices will likely drop further upon formal signing Friday, providing relief to consumers and businesses. 3. Lionel Messi scored his first World Cup hat-trick, leading Argentina to a dominant 3-0 victory over Algeria. Messi's 3 goals in Kansas City tied him for first all-time World Cup goal scorer across all tournaments. At age 38, Messi remains elite on the sport's biggest stage. Argentina's opening victory puts them in prime position to advance. They are defending champions and hunting history, the first team since Brazil in 1962 to win back-to-back World Cups. Messi's performance was not alone. Kylian Mbappé scored twice for France, defeating Senegal 3-1 and becoming France's all-time leading World Cup goal scorer. Erling Haaland scored twice for Norway in a 4-1 rout of Iraq, marking Norway's return to the World Cup after 20 years away. Why it matters. Star power is delivering early in the tournament. Historic individual performances by Messi, Mbappé, and Haaland suggest this World Cup will be remembered for offensive brilliance. Argentina and France are establishing themselves as strong contenders for the final. 4. Global oil markets responded decisively to the Iran deal announcement. Oil prices dropped sharply on news that the Strait of Hormuz will reopen. Energy traders immediately repriced energy costs downward, betting on restored global oil supplies flowing through the critical waterway. The repricing signals market confidence in the deal's durability. If the Friday signing proceeds, oil prices could fall further as market fears about supply disruption ease. U.S. stock futures rose in early trading, reflecting investor appetite for deal-driven geopolitical resolution. Why it matters. Lower oil prices benefit consumers and businesses globally, reducing inflationary pressure at a moment when the Fed is holding rates steady. This dynamic could ease future Fed rate hike pressure heading into 2027. 5. Former Fed Chair Jerome Powell remains on the Federal Reserve Board despite stepping down from the top job. Powell, who served 5 years as chair, remains available to advise and vote on Fed decisions. This unusual arrangement was designed to provide continuity during the leadership transition. Powell and Warsh have worked together to ensure smooth handoff of Fed communications and policy direction. However, their policy philosophies differ. Powell favored measured rate cuts to support economic growth. Warsh appears more cautious on easing, citing persistent inflation risks. Why it matters. The Fed under Warsh is signaling a more hawkish stance than Powell's. Investors are repricing expectations for 2027 away from rate cuts and toward rate hikes. This represents a significant shift in policy direction after Powell's late 2025 easing cycle. Like and subscribe for fact-based news from official government sources only. Leave a comment. Tell us what stories you want to hear.